Hello, hello. All right, so everybody joining right now, you're going to have the ability to turn your camera on or your mic on. Feel free to do either or neither. Both are totally acceptable. Let's see. I'm going to hit send on one more email here real quick and make sure everybody knows that we are live. We are live. All right. While we're waiting, while we're waiting on a few people to roll in, I would love it if you would type into the chat, or if you dare, unmute yourself and say it out loud. Say where you're from. I'd love to figure out where everybody's coming in from. Ooh, I see Jeff Burns. I know you. Also, iPad. I know you. San Diego, New York City, San Francisco. Hi, Austin from India. Cool. Brazil, Los Angeles. LA is not too far from me, and San Diego is not too far from me either. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. Well, actually, Tempe, Arizona. We got Colorado. Joe Kona from the Valley in LA. Awesome. This is fun. So I'm treating this training a little bit differently than I've done it in the past. I've always released a pre-recorded video, but I love live training so much that I thought, why the heck not? I haven't done it for this many people before. Well, I guess we'll see how many people join, but I'm very excited. So this is, feel free to be very interactive. Interrupt me with questions by unmuting yourself and saying, wait, what did you do there? That is very acceptable. Or just typing in the chat, which I will keep my eye on every once in a while, pop in and see if there are questions. Take a sip of water.
I thought I'd be the brave one and say hi from Oklahoma.
Brave.
How are you?
Good. How are you? That's Jeff. Jeff speaking,
Jeff,
right?
Yep, that's Jeff.
Awesome.
Happy to be here.
Yay. That's awesome. Thanks for being brave. It's a funny thing. Like if you're standing with people in a physical space, it's not weird to be like, hey, I'm Jeff, so-and-so. But for some reason on like computer screens and you see a bunch of names, there's like this, it feels different. I know that feeling because I've been there and I've been the one that doesn't say anything.
It's easier to hide for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm very excited to see people coming in. Again, I'm going to send this one more email saying we are live just to make sure we capture folks that want to come in. We're live on response. Next up. And send. It's also nerve-wracking to hit send to thousands of people when I'm like, did I get that right? Did I say the things right? It's the right link there. It is. Yes, send. Very cool. I'm also going to double check the Facebook page and make sure, is everybody in here also in the Facebook page? If you're into joining Facebook groups. Actually, you know what? I'll send a link in the chat just in case. There's a link to the Facebook group where you can post your homework, because I'm going to get you to do some homework in here. And yeah, we've already got some people introducing themselves. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. I was like, yeah. Oh, I see Jeff Burns asked to join. Very cool. Approved, sir. All right. Let's get started here. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Share desktop 1. Let me know if you can see my screen. And I assume everyone can hear me fine. I'm getting lots of responses, so I'm not deaf to everybody.
Yeah, I can see it.
Perfect. Thank you. Jeff, you're the representative of everyone, I guess.
Uh-oh.
It's a heavy burden to bear. Okay, let's just dive right in. So diving right in, I'm going to tell a little bit of my story and then dive right into After Effects. So I wanted to explain that I've grown up loving art, and I didn't realize that I wanted to make it a career until somewhere in college. A friend of mine said, "Why don't you go to graphic design? You like doodling and drawing so much." And I was like, "Oh, right, that's a thing you can do." And eventually got into the design program and graduated with a graphic design degree, got a job at a software company where I learned lots of other skills too, because I was one of two designers, then became the only one. And then, some other people were in and out a bit, but I learned how to do some web development, some web design, got into video, got into UI UX stuff. And so I've got my fingers and, dipped into a bunch of different little skill sets, but it was the video and the graphic design combo that really drew me into animation, because I was like, sweet, I can put my logos and stuff on these videos. So I was watching YouTube tutorials on how to do logo animations, and I was excited because I was getting some cool results, but it was frustrating because I couldn't do anything else. I was just watching tutorials, and maybe you feel this pain where you've watched a tutorial, made something interesting, and then you're like, sweet, let's make something else. Guess I better go find a different tutorial and copy that tutorial. And you don't feel like your stuff is very original. And anytime you try something on your own, it's like clunky and doesn't quite fit, doesn't quite work. Well, that's kind of where I was at. And then I don't know, I spent a long time trying to learn on my own. I ended up learning through some courses and getting some mentors. And then finally it was like, I've got it. I understand what's making these things look good and why they're not. And so I want to impart some of that wisdom on you. This lesson right here is going to be real basic. It's going to be real introductory to After Effects, the different panels that you can use. And basically I want to show you everything you need to know, but not other stuff that you don't, because there's like literally a billion things you can do in After Effects. And we're not going to try to dive into all of that today. So basically we're going to go over animating your own signature, which is anybody here following along and going to try to animate something while you're actually watching this training? Let me know if you are. I'm curious. Sometimes I'll just watch stuff and then like go through the replay later. Awesome. Anthony says for sure. Also, Tushar, thanks for the comment on the Euchromedia podcast. I really enjoyed that podcast episode. It was super fun. Currently working the moment, but I'd love to. Cool. No worries. There will be a replay that you can watch later, and it'll be great. Where am I? Oh, yeah. Show you everything you need to know and nothing that you don't. I also want to point out that there are like 4 main kind of things that I think are important for learning how to be a good animator that are slightly different than being a designer and still similar to being a videographer. Maybe this is another good thing to enter into the chat is, where are you coming to animation from? So I came at it from graphic design plus video, kind of a natural blend turned into animation. But I know some people come from filmmaking. Some people just have no background in any other creative field per se. They just want to get into animation. But a lot of people come from another path. Put in the chat a little bit of like where you're coming at it from, what your creative background is. I'm very curious to know. It might help me navigate the training for that. But yeah, so I think that there's 4 main things that you need to understand to be good at animation. And that is that you need to develop your eye for animation. Animation is, I'm talking here, but I'm not showing anything. How can I stop sharing? So you can just see my face. So animation, you need to develop your eye for it. There's like, if you're going to be good at design, you need to understand what makes design really interesting and what makes it stand out, what makes it good, why is it balanced. There needs to be white space, there needs to be like hierarchy. There's similar, animation principles, but they are a little bit different than design. So I'm going to show you some examples of animation principles and how they might differ from graphic design. But also one really crucial key to like getting it is watching other good animations. I'm not a fan of that being your only source of inspiration for getting good at animation, but it's definitely important to understand what pieces are working and what are not. And, you know, start understanding and developing your eye for what makes something good and what doesn't, like what works and what doesn't. Anyways, so that's the first thing, developing your eye. Then there's like the technical stuff. You need to know After Effects or whatever program you're going to use. There's Cinema 4D for 3D stuff. There is Rough Animator you can use on your iPad and create animations. I've been doing that a lot lately, and it's kind of amazing the stuff that you can create with a tablet and a pen on my couch. It's so fun. So there's the technical stuff. I think that both of those need to kind of go hand in hand. I don't think that you can just learn to develop your eye and then, like, I don't think you should wait for one or the other to be good. I think they both kind of go hand in hand. There's the animation principles. I think that kind of the same thing as developing your eye, but it's kind of separated a little bit. And then consistent practice. Consistent practice is like the unsung hero of becoming good at things. I cannot tell you how many people I've seen that were not terribly good at the beginning, and their stuff just was like, okay. And then you sleep on their account for a while, and 3 months later, they've been doing work every day. And all of a sudden, the stuff they're doing is just blowing your mind. Like, how are you so good? And then you start looking back at the posts they've been making, and it's like just a slow, steady progress. And at some point, things just start kicking in. And it's like, wow, stuff is getting really good. So I think that it's important to know that things take that consistent focus of really paying attention to dedicating a little bit of time every day. I really think that putting the time in every day is more important than binging on the weekend. So if you can find that 15, 30-minute chunk of time every day to open up After Effects, that you will be getting good at what you're doing, all the little things in After Effects, way faster than spending 2 or 3 hours on a Saturday. I wish that it was different, because it's fun to just like sit in there and get lost and just kind of check out and do the other things you need to do. But I really think that I wouldn't say it if I didn't think it was true. Sticking with something consistently will actually get you better results. So I encourage you to do that. So I want to jump in here and check out where people are coming at this from. Graphic design seems to be pretty consistent. Illustration, hand lettering, graphic design, advertising, graphic design, lettering, animation. Yes. Graphic design, 3D video, web. Also working at the moment, but I'd love to do graphic design. No previous creative background, just love doing motion design. Awesome. Joe, former Disney cleanup artist, currently in sales and looking to get back into freelance graphics, logo animation packages, or package design. That's awesome, Joe. Very cool. Let's see. I love the theory part that goes into making motion design piece. And let's see, industrial design, hand lettering. This is cool. This is a nice kind of varied background, a lot coming from the design place. And so I think you're in the right place. All right, now I am going to jump into After Effects and show you some actual animation stuff. And remember, interrupt me with unmuting. That's going to be the best way to get my attention. If I did something and you're just like, totally blew over that, what the heck was that? Just let me know. All right, so I'm going to show you around After Effects just for a second. This is very similar to other Adobe products where you have different panels. When you select the panel, it has like a little blue line around it, and you can even drag your panels into different areas. So I just clicked at the top of this panel, and you can drop it inside of this, and it'll become kind of a tabbed panel, which is neat. Or you can drive it back here. So if things on your screen don't look like mine, that's okay. I'm using the default setting here so that it's easy for you to click on default, and it will bring you back to this. Otherwise, I think you can go to Window, Workspace, and then Default. Ooh, it has a little keyboard shortcut, Shift F10. I'm a big fan of keyboard shortcuts. All right, so we've got these guys down. This is just, yeah, the lay of the land, the things that we'll touch on in this lesson. I don't think we'll touch on any of these things over here per se. Eventually we will talk about effects and presets. Align is self-explanatory. So is character and paragraph. info. I actually never use that, but preview I do use a little bit. All right, so the project panel is where all of your things live. This is what makes After Effects a little different than, say, Illustrator or Photoshop. If you're going to use something inside of After Effects, it needs to live inside of your project panel. So if you want, let's say you want to bring in your signature. So you write your signature on a piece of paper. Maybe you already did that before the class, and you take a photo of it. Now you're going to need to get in here, and we can do that a few different ways. You can right click inside of an empty part of that project panel and say import, and then file, or you can do Command I. I'm on a Mac, so I'll be talking about Mac related keyboard shortcuts, but it'll be just Control on a PC. You can also go up to File, Import. Like any other Adobe product, there's tons of different ways to do these things. And then you would just click whatever your image is. I've already got it in here, so I'm just going to say cancel. And I like to put things into folders. I like to have my compositions in folders, my images in folders, and After Effects automatically creates this folder called solids, which we'll go over a little bit later. Now, composition, this is your like timeline composition window. And this composition window is basically what you're going to see, like the animations that's going on. So let me go ahead and create a new composition. You can either click here on this blank one or this little button right here, create new composition. I'm going to call this one signature. And for the preset here, I highly advise going straight into HDTV 1080-24. This is basically like a regular widescreen video, and it'll set it to 24 frames per second, which basically just means for every 1 second of animation, there are 24 different images that go into that. 24 is very standard for animation. I think in the UK, 30 is maybe more usual, but I use 24 for almost everything. And the only other thing you should really worry about maybe is making sure your duration is not crazy short or crazy long. I like to start off around 10 seconds, and that's pretty manageable. And so from here, oh, also background color matters, but it also doesn't matter. Another one of those things I'll explain in just a second. It's a weird After Effects quirk, but it is manageable. All right, I'll say okay. So right now you'll see this like checkered area in here, and that means that we don't have anything going on. Now, if see this little, all right, actually I have a question for you. If I click Control and do this zoom in, does it look like it's zooming into you? I'm gonna wait. No, okay, good to know. All right, so I'll just rely on moving my mouse. So this little checkered box, this toggle transparency grid, you can click that. And basically, if there is transparency when it's on and it's selected blue, it'll show what all the transparency is. Now here's where it gets a little confusing. So if I click off of it, it looks like we have a white background, but really this is just, if we go into composition and composition settings, this is just relative to what this color is. So if we change this to red, it'll be red back there. But when you render out a video, that won't actually show up. Whatever is transparent will just be black unless you set it to like allow transparency. So the first thing you need to know is create a background color. That is another one of those things that's a little different than Illustrator or Photoshop. I guess Photoshop I think it starts with the default background color. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go up to Layer, New, and Solid. Let's see what it is, Solid. And this is basically going to give us a solid color. So it is what it says it is. And so I'll just call this white background. And you can click on Make Comp Size. And what that does is it makes sure that that layer is exactly the same size as your composition. We'll say okay. Now we have a white background. And if we click this, it shows that there is no transparency. And we don't want to mess with this. So I'm going to lock it with the little lock icon. All right, so now that we have that, we're going to drag this signature in. We're using my wife's handwriting because hers is much better than mine, but it doesn't have to be perfect. So when I drag that in, obviously this is too tall. or big, whatever. And I'm gonna undo just to show you a couple different ways you can do this. You can either drag it by dropping it into the layer panel, like the layer stack, or you can drop it onto the actual composition window and see it kind of snaps to the middle there. And that will put it right on the top of the layer stack. And from here, let's see, if you want to zoom out, you can either hit the comma key, comma and period, zoom in and out, which is kind of interesting. I don't know why they chose that, or command minus and plus to zoom in and out. And from here, we can scale this down, hold shift to keep it from getting all wonky. I'll zoom back in. And so now we want to basically trace over your letters with the pen tool. And I don't want to affect this layer at all anymore, so I'm going to hit lock again. Now, to draw, we can either just choose the pen tool up here, very similar to Photoshop or Illustrator, and so if we start drawing here, it will create this layer down here called shape layer. Or if we delete that, we can do right click down here, new, and shape layer. It just kind of gives you a layer to start drawing on. And with the pen tool, you're going to want to like turn off the fill. So if your fill is on, obviously it's going to be not what you want. So let's undo that. You can turn the fill off by clicking on fill and then the little none icon. And then choosing some kind of, I'm going to choose red so that I can see it as opposed to the black writing here. And pixel width, 10 pixels wide is probably pretty good. All right, so now I'm going to select this shape layer again and start tracing over the R. Let's see. Anthony said, how do you rotate? To rotate things, there is a rotate tool, which W is the keyboard shortcut for that. So like rotate, and then you can, oh, I have this locked. So if we click this layer, click W, and then you can rotate it. So if your image is like, wonky, that's how you're going to rotate it. And I'm holding shift to let it snap to those 90-degree angles. Okay, cool. I will rotate my signature. Okay, so now with the shape layer selected, I am going to go back in here. Hitting G brings up the pen tool. Not sure why exactly. I know P does position for the layers, but we're going to start with the pen tool here. And it doesn't have to be perfect yet, but just trace over these. Now, because I've been taught by some smarter lettering designers than I've learned that it's not a bad idea to make your pin drops, can't think of the right word. Basically, wherever you click on the parts that are at the bottommost, the leftmost, the topmost, or the rightmost parts of your strokes here, so that you can hold shift and make your lines horizontal and vertical. Click over here, and it won't always work. So right here, I'm not doing that exactly. Also, this is kind of cool. If you've placed it in the wrong place, let's say it was over here, if you hold, while you're clicking and dragging, if you hold space, you can actually move that vertex point over a bit. Same thing with Illustrator, it's pretty neat. All right, so we've got the R written on. That's looking good enough. And I don't actually want this A because it's a separate stroke. I don't want it to be on the same layer. So I'll click off of here and I will create a new shape layer. And I'll start drawing the A. And I think I'll hit period to zoom in. And this is definitely not perfect, but I'll go back in here. And if you want to get that vertex point to like manually tweak it, you can double click and then single click on that point and then start tweaking these guys. So we're just kind of quickly going through here. Also, you can grab, like click and hold on the pen tool, and it will bring, you can bring up the convert vertex tool. This is very similar to Illustrator, where you can kind of pull out those Bezier handles. All right, so that's starting to look pretty good. Also, at this point, you're going to be like, oh, wait, shape layer 1, shape layer 2, that's not looking good. We want to be more organized than that. The way you change the name of a shape layer, of a layer in After Effects, is by clicking on the layer and then hit enter. And still, like if you double click, it's actually going to give you problems. Well, it won't give you problems. It's a shape layer. But sometimes if you have like an Illustrator layer, it'll open up that Illustrator layer kind of by itself inside the composition window, and it's annoying. So just hit enter. Yeah, click the layer, hit enter, and we're going to rename this one just R. Click on this one, hit enter, call it A. And now with the pen tool selected again, I'm going to zoom in and we'll finish off Rachel here. And I kind of like this bit that's all connected. So I'm going to come back in here and tweak some of these. And it really doesn't have to match your signature exactly. Just kind of getting it close is fine. All right, so the other thing that I think we really need to tweak in terms of the design so far, if I eyeball this, the actual signature off, you'll notice that these have flat lines, like flat edges up at the end, and I don't really want that. It doesn't mimic the pen. And so the way we're going to get that is click on this layer here, and this is going to be kind of our first dive into what layers look like on the inside of After Effects. So you've got contents, which is the shape that's on the screen, and transform. So right now we're going to look through contents. So we've got the shape 1. I'll drag this over here. Shape 1, toggle that down, and we've got a path, which is just exactly what it says. It's that path. We've got the stroke. These things are all manipulatable individually. So you can turn the stroke on and off by clicking that eyeball. You can toggle this down, and we have several more options. You've got color, you've got opacity, stroke width. So inside of this layer, you can change the stroke width. And anything that has one of these little stopwatch icons, you can actually animate, which is really cool. So you could animate the stroke width to go from 10 pixels to 55 pixels. So over this course of time, it just animates up. And we're not going to do that on this one, but there's all sorts of reasons you might want to do these at some point. So the thing what we want to do right here is go to the line cap. Right now it's at the butt cap, which just cuts it off, and we want it to be a round cap. And the same thing with the line join. We want this to go ahead and be a round join. So it rounds things out nicely. We'll mimic your signature better. And we'll go ahead and do this for the other ones too. Let's toggle this down, content, shapes, quite a bit of toggling, but I'll show you love the name butt cap. Yeah, it's definitely a funny one. Change both of these. One more. This one is Chell. And again, hit enter to rename layers. And toggling all the way down here, butt cap to round cap, miter join to round join. And here's a really cool feature of After Effects that I didn't learn for a long time. So secret tip to you, you can use this search bar up here. So let's say we select the CHEL layer and we want to find that butt cap, round cap. Let's say, I think I could search for that butt cap. Nope, we might have to look for line cap because the actual property is called line cap. So if you type in something that you're searching for, you can type in something like path. It'll bring up the path. Something like line cap, it'll bring up the line cap for whatever layer. If you have a layer selected, it'll show up for that one layer. Or if you have nothing selected, it'll show up for all layers. Another one you could search for is color, and it brings up the fill and the stroke color. Of course, the fill is gone. Neat little tip here, you can actually delete these properties. Just delete and it's gone. But yeah, so we've got these looking better. I'm not digging the the A here. There's some kind of wonky stuff going on. So I'm going to tweak this for a second. Have this come down further. Have this come over. That's looking okay to me. Zoom back out. All right. Does anybody have any questions so far? We've just traced the letter, no animations yet, but I don't want to leave anybody behind. Cool, looking good so far. All right. Also, one other thing that I think is really interesting and different and nice about doing live training like this is I'm going to mess up from here and there. And that's just how animation works. And so when you watch a tutorial and someone takes you through like 10 steps to do a particular thing and you get frustrated because like, I keep screwing up. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Live training like this shows you that like, I'm not going to do things perfectly. And there's always little tweaks that happen along the way. And anybody who's making interesting animations, they're not getting it right first try. They're doing stuff and tweaking and fixing and changing all the time. So you are not behind if it takes you a long time to do this stuff. So let's go ahead and animate with our new, this is literally going to be your best friend in After Effects when it comes to animating letters. This is the coolest trick or feature or whatever you want to call it. And it's this dinky little button here is going to give us access to it. It says add. We've got a little, I don't know, play button or something. Come down here and trim paths. Let's say it together, everyone. Trim paths are our new best friend. Jeff, I didn't hear you. Trim paths. This is really going to be awesome. So let's open up trim paths here.
Sorry, I'm failing. Trim paths for the win.
Trim paths. I need to make like a t-shirt. It's just trim paths for the win. And no one would get it except for people who know After Effects.
Let's do it.
All right. I'm going to put that on my list of things to do. Trim paths for the, I don't have to spell that out, but FTW. T-shirt. You heard it here first, folks. All right, so let's actually animate this. So we're gonna, trim paths is this, it's this really cool thing and it can be confusing, but we're gonna go through the simple version first before it gets confusing, and I'll talk in more depth in a minute about like the depths of what you can do with it. So basically, trim paths sees this stroke. Trim paths won't really work very well on shapes that have a fill. This is much better for things that just have a stroke like we have with this. And what's going on here is the end, so we started drawing this line on at the base of that stem of the R, and it goes this way. So the end is considered the last thing we dropped in there. So if I pull the end back by dropping that number down, you can see that line like unwriting itself. And so basically, we're going to start by giving this guy a keyframe at 0. So this keyframe, by clicking on that stopwatch right there, that gives us this keyframe. And that keyframe says, at this point in time on this timeline here, that's the value that I want this property here to be. So when I say property, I'm talking about some kind of layer property underneath all of these drop-down twirlies. So let's move the playhead ahead to like 12 frames. So this little here, 00:12F, that just means 12 frames, which is half a second. Because we've got 12 frames per second, or 24 frames per second, 12 frames will be half a second. Oh, also, you can kind of see it's halfway between 0 and 1 second. All right. So on this timeline, wherever your timeline marker, I call it the playhead. I think this current time indicator, I think that name is dumb. So I just call it the playhead. Wherever your playhead is, that's what, I'll give you a keyframe whenever you change that value. So if we come in here and change this value all the way up to 100 to have it written on all the way, it gives us a new keyframe. And now After Effects is smart, and it goes, oh, in between these keyframes, let's change the value of that property called end. And every new frame is just going to go up a little bit by little bit till it gets to 100%. And that's what gives us our animation. So it looks like it's getting written on. And now if we want it to last longer, and if someone was taking their time writing this on, we just drag this keyframe out here to like 2.5 seconds. And I'm hitting the space bar to play this, by the way. And so that's getting it on. Honestly, in terms of like good animation, this is too slow. You don't want to do this like really slow deal. We're going to want this to happen in less than a second. But that's just to show you that you can draw things out longer. Also, anytime I say you shouldn't do this, I only mean that when you're starting, maybe it's advisable to do this. There's always examples and what do you call it? Exceptions to the rule. Like the Stranger Things. Does anybody watch Stranger Things? Their logo animation at the beginning is epic. It's so cool. And it is slow. It's like perfectly like moody and slow. And it just, and so that like totally goes against the thing that I say here, which is don't animate these things on slow. You want it to be fast. But like I said, it's going to be contextual to whatever you're animating. And for your own signature, people aren't going to be as interested as they are with the Stranger Things logo. Let's just be honest. You want to wow someone with your animated signature, like you can have it in your email signature, which is a great place to put it, or on your website, on social media, on any videos that you create. You want it to be kind of zippy and fun so it catches someone's eye and it's interesting. All right, so let's keep going here. We've got the R getting written on. Now, this write on is actually kind of boring because there's no difference in the speed. The speed at which this thing writes on is just constant, but that's not the way things move in the real world. Everything, like think of a car. Can you see my screen? Like my video, little me in the corner somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay. So my hand, let's say it's a car and it's moving from this side of the screen to that side of the screen. It's not going to just go like I'm trying to do the robot where it like has jerky motions. It's going to start off slow, go fast, and then slow down at the end. So you're stepping on the gas, it accelerates slowly, you get up to speed, and then when you hit the brake, you slow down over time and then eventually stop. And this does not exemplify that kind of motion, but we want it to. And it's a very easy fix. We just click and drag across those keyframes, right select it, go down to Keyframe Assistant and Easy Ease. Easy Ease is going to be the thing you need to do for almost all your keyframes. Not necessarily every single one. Like I said, there's always exceptions. I'll do this again. Select those keyframes, right click, down at the very bottom, Keyframe Assistant and Easy Ease. Now, I when I'm animating myself, I don't do that. I use the keyboard shortcut F9, but also this is one of those funky things on a Mac. Depending on what keyboard you have, if you hit F9, it might just change your song to the next song. So you might have to hit Function F9. But if I undo this, select these again, and I hit F9, I have it set up so that I don't have to do the function button. It gives us these Easy Ease keyframes. And you can tell because they have this little hourglass. I'm not sure exactly why it's an hourglass, but that's what it is. And so that's just going to like be kind of a smoother beginning and end. If I drag this out, you can tell even more. So it starts off slow and ends really slow. And now I'm gonna give you a real quick sneak peek at the graph editor, which we'll go into more in the next training session tomorrow. But basically what's going on in here is if these guys are not eased, so I hit, let me jump back out of here. If I turn these back to linear keyframes, that's what they always start off as linear keyframes. And we select this, hit this little tiny graph editor button, and we come in here. We basically see that this is a straight line up. So this is just that value, which at the beginning, these things are all kind of tied together. It's very technical and mathy kind of feeling, but it all works out to make beautiful art in the end. So playhead's at 0. The value of this property is at 0. So you can see down here, this little 0 corresponds to this. Now, if we move 4 frames ahead, you can see this line intersecting almost at 20. So it's like 18 maybe. Yeah. And we look over here, we got 18.2. You don't need to like memorize this kind of thing at all. Just showing you what this graph is actually showing you. And so you can just see that it's the speed starts picking up. It doesn't even start picking up. It just starts going the same. The speed is the same the whole time. But what we want, and if I select these and hit F9, is we get this nice curve, this little S curve. And then from here, we can actually click this. If I hold shift, it'll lock it down to the bottom, and we can really make that extreme. And here's what happens when we do that. You can see it starting off slow. I'll drag this one out so we can see it more extreme at 2 seconds. Starts off really slow, then it goes fast and kind of eases in to the final keyframe there. And that just starts giving way more dynamic animations to something that was, you know, the trim paths bit is pretty easy. The easy ease is pretty easy. And then now this part is not the easiest, but obviously it didn't take too many clicks. It's more of just a matter of understanding what you're doing. But for something simple like this ride on, it's pretty easy. Like, it's looking pretty good. We've already made quite a bit of improvement. All right, so now we want to actually apply this same kind of animation to the rest of the letters. So we can actually copy and paste different properties from one layer to the next. So if I click on trim paths and I hit Command C, that copies it. Then I move up to A and I hit paste. It doesn't seem like much happened. Maybe it went away here. But if you want to see what keyframes you've used, if you have that layer selected and hit U, the letter U, basically think of it as what keyframes have I used with the U, then it will show you these keyframes. Now notice the keyframes might not be where I want them to be. I want them to be closer to these over here. In that time, I want them to happen about just one after the other. But it's here because that's where my playhead was when I hit paste. So if I undo that and I jump back into here, if I click this letter and then type into the search bar again, which we've done before, trim paths, I can grab that there, copy it, and now let's maybe move the playhead over here, click on the A layer and hit Command V, paste. Hit U to see these layers, and now we can see that those are both animating on. I didn't have to go through the whole like clicking on the play button, adding trim paths, and making these keyframes. I'm just copying and pasting it. And from here I can tweak it. Since the A isn't as it's not as long, I'm just going to bring that in so that it happens over a shorter period of time there. And then, and this one's going to be a little bit different, we can paste it onto this one right here, hit U. Now, there's a lot more letters in the CHEL, so we may want to make this a little bit longer, like so. You can start kind of seeing the correlation of like, this is the R getting written on over a longer period of time, the A is getting written on a shorter period of time, and the CHEL over an even longer time. So it just feels good together. And that is pretty cool. I'm digging that. But you might be asking yourself, wait, when I'm writing my signature, I can't start writing the A while the R is going. And while that's true, you could also point to any cartoon ever and be like, that couldn't happen in real life. And that's not the point. The point isn't to make something look exactly like real life. The point is to use animation to create something interesting. And I think overlapping when things start in your animations is definitely this like first thing you should do to like bend reality to make something pretty cool. All right, so that's a great first start for the signature. Has anybody animated their signature following along so far? Take a water break. Anthony, awesome, yay. Andrew, I think you're saying that's a really good point about the like bending reality and overlapping things and not worrying about them being super perfectly realistic. Yeah, cool. It's okay. So also fun story. I tried to teach myself After Effects recreating Stranger Things. Hey, that's cool. He said, "LOL, that was bad times." I believe it. That was a expertly crafted animation, and I I would imagine that was pretty hard. But hey, that's you have a good eye for good animation, and that's the first step. So bravo. Um, all right, so we have the first letter or the first word. You know, I think I'll probably stop with that in terms of showing how to do this because you've already seen that demoed. But I do want to show a few more things inside of some other compositions here that are really good to understand, not for your signature necessarily, but just kind of understanding what's going on behind the scenes with After Effects and what's going on. Just said that twice. Nice. So we've talked a little bit about keyframes here already. Basically, whenever you see these diamond-shaped keyframes, that means they're going to be linear. So up here, I'm calling this linear. I've got this box here. And if I erase this box so we're not distracted by it, and we watch the animation, you can kind of see how this is not super lifelike, not super inspiring. But if we look at this box, which has just a simple easy ease applied to it, you can see this S curve. And yeah, there's another green one in here. It's a little confusing, which we're going to go over tomorrow. So don't worry about that right now. But the S curve right here is really what you want to see. This is already going to look a lot smoother. And then I'm going to duplicate this one. So to duplicate things inside of After Effects, if you select the layer and hit Command D or Control D, it'll duplicate it. I'll turn this box off so that we're just seeing the one. And now if I go into the graph editor, and there's two different views to this. There's the value graph and there's the speed graph, which again, I'll go over much more detail tomorrow, but just know that there are two different ones. Now, if I drag these in here and make these super extreme, this basically says at this point, the speed is 0. And when the playhead moves forward just a little bit, the speed is just a little faster. And then the speed is a little faster. And then right here in the middle, it's going so fast. It's like, it just shoots all the way across the screen right there because the speed is super high. And then the speed slows down a lot. So it's different than the value graph that we were looking at before. And I'll do that on both of these. Just yanking those Bezier handles so that the speed goes really high at the middle. Let's go out of this and watch it. And now we can see how this is going to be much more extreme. But man, that's so smooth. It's like really smooth. I love animating and I love After Effects. It's so cool how just these tiny little tweaks can make something that would be pretty boring actually kind of nice. I also think that you're probably ready for something that's just a little more advanced. So there's an animation principle called anticipation. Basically, it's the concept of like the wind up before the pitch, or like maybe I'm going baseball here. The batter is doing like swinging the bat before he ends up swinging. It's squatting down before you jump. It's this movement, a small movement before the big movement. It basically, the reason it's powerful and it's important for animation is it says, hey, look at me, I'm about to do something, so that your eye can then kind of gravitate towards the right thing and then watch the thing happen. And the way we're going to do some anticipation with this box here is we're going to have this keyframe right here start quite a bit sooner. Scoot it way up here. I'm going to mute you, Joe, real quick. So if I copy and paste, we can actually copy and paste so many things in After Effects, one of those things being keyframes. So if I copy this keyframe here, and wherever the playhead is and whatever layer I have selected and hit paste, that's where it's going to go. And so nothing's going to happen because I copy and pasted the exact same keyframe to itself. But in this instance right here, I have this layer selected, and up here in the window, the composition panel, I'm going to click and drag this to the left so that this will have like a motion of going to the left before it goes to the right. Now, I'm pretty sure I messed something up here. but I want to show you why it's messed up. Yeah. There's kind of a funky little, like it goes far and then it kind of comes back and it jerks and stops and then it goes. So what's going on here is if we go back to this part where I pushed it all the way to the left, if I actually, instead of just pushing it directly to the left, I pushed it up as well, and I zoom in here, hitting the period key to zoom in, you can see that it's giving us these Bezier handles that are kind of letting it be a big loop. So it's not, it doesn't look like linear keyframes here. It looks like a kind of an auto Bezier thing going on. And so if I undo, 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 and then I click this keyframe, it looks like it should just go out, but then it has these little dotted lines. It's basically showing like it's going to go even further, and we don't want that. So the way to fix that kind of problem is to right click on that keyframe and go down to keyframe interpolation. And then where it says auto Bezier, we want it to be linear. This actually took me a while to understand that that was the way you fix this problem. And I'm so glad I figured it out because it was so annoying. And now, zoom back out here. I think this should work. Yeah, that is pretty cool. One thing to watch out for when you're animating things is this desire to make everything, when you learn about anticipation, you kind of like, ooh, that's exciting. You don't have to have everything anticipate. You just kind of want some key elements anticipating. Not a hard and fast rule, but just I see that happen a lot. That kind of actually I did a lot when I started to getting really excited about anticipation and using it a whole bunch. But there's also this tendency to have the anticipation happen really fast. So as I click and drag this keyframe in, if it's only like 1, 2, 3, 4 keyframes away, that anticipation is going to be a little too jerky of a motion, just a little unrealistic, not in a good way. So we want that to be a little, like, give things time and space to breathe a little bit, I think is a good rule of thumb. So I think that's looking pretty cool. So that's a really nice animation principle, is anticipation. All right, let's get into what else did I want to show. We've got the lettering animation. Oh yeah, so this is not a signature, but I wanted to show how you could apply this write-on technique with the signature to something really much more intense, like the lettering animation logo. So in this file here, we have 25 layers, including the background and a couple of dots that are not strokes like the rest of them. But we can animate this very quickly. You know what, I'm going to duplicate this and call this one demo. So another thing inside of After Effects here, we're inside of the compositions folder, and if I undo, clicking this composition here and hitting duplicate, Command D to duplicate, and then I hit enter to change the name and type in demo, enter. That's how we're going to like duplicate different things inside of the project panel. And let's go ahead and jump in here. I'm only doing this because I didn't want to mess up the other one that I had. So right here, I'm going to, this is one of those like behind the curtains. I'm going to do a bunch of things that I'm not trying to teach you so much, but I'll talk about it as I go. So if I hit Command A, that selects all of the layers inside of a composition. And then if I hit the left bracket, the hard brackets, not the paragraph, but the bracket, it brings, if I undo that, if I hit that thing again, it brings all of these layers and lines up the left end of that layer all the way up to wherever the playhead is. And now I'm going to come out here to where everything is already written on. Like this, if I hit U, there's a whole bunch of keyframes in here. And I'm just going to delete all of them by clicking on that stopwatch. Again, this isn't exactly what I wanted to show you, but I thought I might as well talk through it. Also, if you notice, there's a whole lot of layers in here and they all have like keyframes showing. There's a lot of stuff going on. So if I hit the tilde key, that's like under escape, at least on a Mac. it'll expand whatever panel you have to be full screen. Now I can see a whole lot more real estate. Bye, Andrea. Let's see. Got to leave early, pick up your son for school. Have a safe trip picking up your son. Thanks for the class. I'd like to try my hand at After Effects when I'm not at my day job. Cool. Yeah. Enjoy the replay and catch the next ones. All right. So we are still undoing all of this animation stuff. Basically so that we can start from scratch. And if I hit tilde again, it'll bring it back to normal. So this might be what your file would look like if you brought it in straight from Illustrator. Actually, it wouldn't look like that exactly straight from Illustrator. There's another step. But again, I'll show that tomorrow on how you can bring in Illustrator stuff. Calling in Audible. I'm not going to show you tomorrow. I'm going to show you right now because you might need it tomorrow or today. Let's bring up Illustrator. Perfect. I have my Facebook banner graphic up. So if we wanted to bring this in, let me copy this, open up a new file. We'll call it 1920 by 1080. If I paste this in here, it's going to be hard to see, but we'll put a little background in here. Turn that off. Let's make this color blue original. I have these little keyboard shortcuts for my color hex colors. Okay, so I'm going to ungroup this. Let's delete this part. All right, Mark's got to take off as well. Be back tomorrow. See you then. Just going to delete things that we don't want for this particular animation. Looking good. Maybe I'll put this on a different layer. Put it down below, lock it. Bring this over here. Yeah, importing from Illustrator is something you'll do a lot. So it's funny, I don't do it quite as much. I use this really cool plugin called Overlord. Again, that will definitely be something I talk about tomorrow. You know, I'm gonna write it down just to make sure. Talk about Overlord tomorrow. Okay. So we've got this layer, ungroup again. I want to get all of these different strokes. So this is actually made up of a bunch of different strokes. I wanted to have a lot of control over this. And so you can see how everything has just a tiny little different stroke on it. Is Overlord paid plugin? Yeah, it is a paid plugin, but if you do any kind of bringing things in from Illustrator, Overlord is worth every penny. So if you have to save up for a minute and, you know, buy it, I think it is 100% worth it. In fact, I wish I could like be a affiliate marketer for him. I don't think he has an affiliate thing because I try to sell everybody on it, and I don't make a penny off of it, but I'll sell it all day long because it's that good. All right, so from here, I'm going to select, I don't even have to select all those things. I have this layer here that has all of these different strokes, and I have them, I made sure they're ungrouped. And if I go over here to this little hamburger button and say release to layers sequence, what this does, let me drag this down a bit. Illustrator is not letting me click and make this bigger. So anyways, it's basically given me all of these different layers here. Now they're still under this one layer, so if I have to click and drag these out, and then I think this last layer is the one that is empty now, and we can kind of see this by clicking the eyeballs on and off. And if you want, you can come in here and name them, double click, E. I like to do this in After Effects because I think it's a little bit faster. This is maybe H1. You know, a lot of designers, myself included, I don't name my Illustrator and Photoshop layers quite as much as I probably should, But when I'm working in After Effects, it's pretty crucial because it's a lot less just like clicking and dragging. There's a lot of, as you can see, layers in here, and it's easy to get lost. So, we'll start with this one, just the H and the E. Oh no, you never name anything. That's scary. It'll be, you really should get into the habit of it inside of After Effects. There is kind of a way around it that I'll show you too. It's today a 2-hour course. It looks like it's turning more into that. I was planning on it being about an hour, so I'm going to wrap up pretty soon. But if you need to run, there will be a replay. Cool. Let's call this lettering animation demo. Save it to desktop. Cool. Okay. So the reason I have things separated into their own layers is because when you go over to After Effects, let's do that thing where we right click here, import, and go to File. Cool. Glad to hear this is super helpful. So let's go to lettering animation demo. Now this is super important. I'm going to pause for a second. So if you weren't paying attention, you'd be like, wait, why is he not talking? This is super important. Where it says import as, we need this to be at least composition. I recommend saying retain layer sizes. What was that, everyone? Import as composition retain layer sizes. Very good, class. It's really important because if you don't, it'll just bring it all in as one layer and you can't do anything with that. And then you'll be like, what did I do? And you get stuck and frustrated and you quit. So I don't want you to quit. I want you to keep going. Okay, so with that selected, we're going to say open. And we can just double click and jump right into this one. Now you see this like black layer back here. That's because this composition setting, for whatever reason, has a black background. But if we want, we can just make that guy much bigger. And it's kind of neat with After Effects. It doesn't really matter if it overflows around the edges because it'll only render out what's in the composition window. But I will go back down here, hit enter, rename this one BG for background, and lock it so that I don't have to worry about clicking on it by accident. Let's see. So now we have a whole bunch of Illustrator layers, but if we toggle this down, you can see there's no contents like we had in here. We have contents and transformation or transform. If you have an Illustrator layer in here, which you can tell by it has like this little Illustrator icon, it only has the transform stuff on it. So we can change position, we can change scale, we can change rotation, but we can't add trim paths. So what do? Well, After Effects has this cool thing. If you right click on any kind of Illustrator layer, you can say create and then go down to the create shapes from vector layer option. I'll do that again. So if that layer is selected, right click, create, and then create shapes from vector. I can see someone is excited about that. Awesome. And now from there, we can go add trim paths and do the same thing we did before. We start off with the end being at 0% so that nothing's written on. Click the little stopwatch, move forward a little bit, crank that guy up to 100, and you see this little E getting written on. It's cool. Now, if you wanted to do this for every layer, you don't have to go through one at a time. You can select all the layers that need to be changed. You know what? I'm going to make sure there's two that I don't want to select, and that is not that one. Here's a little tip. If you're trying to click on something inside the composition window, but it keeps clicking on something that you don't want, click on it and then go lock that layer and then click again. And now we got it. So I'm going to call this one dot. I don't want to actually change that one. I'm not going to make this easy for me to see by turning it to fuchsia, super pink. I'm going to drag it to the bottom so it's kind of out of the way. Let's see, let's grab this dot. That one's fine, easy to find. Change this layer to call it dot as well. Since there's only two, I don't really care to name them differently. easy to figure out. And I'm going to lock all three of these. And let's see what else. Oh yeah, I was going to show you how to do this for all of those layers all at once. You can probably imagine you just select all of them, right click, create, and then create shapes from vector layer. So now we have all of these layers turned into shape strokes so that you can do the trim paths to them. Now here's a quick tip. When everything is selected like this, if you click and drag it up one, it'll pull all of those layers up there. So now you can come back in here and click on all of these Illustrator layers and delete them because you don't need them anymore. And now that we have this one layer with the trim paths on it, maybe let's give it a little bit of ease. We'll hit F9, or you might have to hit Function F9 on your Mac. But it just has a nice little boop, boop. And I think I like that amount of time. That's really, you know, nice. Let's go in here, toggle down until you get into trim paths. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to hit copy, make sure our playhead is at 0 seconds, deselect that one, that first layer, and I'm going to go select all of these guys and hit paste. And what's going to happen here, now here's another handy tip. If you want to deselect every layer, you can either find a blank place to click in, or kind of the opposite of Command A, which is select all. Command Shift A will actually deselect all, which is super nice. And now we can see everything writes on all at once in a really kind of weird way. Like, I don't like this as a final piece. We're not going to use this as a final piece, but in a matter of just a few clicks, we have everything from Illustrator all the way in After Effects animating on. And I think that's super awesome. Also, I hear that my wife got home, so we might hear some commotion, but don't worry about it. Okay, so the way we're going to make this actually look a little bit better and have a better feel to it is by kind of staggering these off. We're going to end up getting this kind of a stagger in here. So first, we're going to drag or click on all of these layers, and new keyboard shortcut for you here. This one's really important. Hit the Option key, or on a PC, it's going to be the Alt key. I think on a Mac keyboard, it also says Alt, but Option, and then right bracket while your playhead is at that 0 mark. And so it basically turns everything in here into a one frame thing. So like, it looks like you did nothing. It looks like you actually undid everything. But what we're doing here is creating these one frame little animations, not even animations, just layers. And what that allows us to do is we have everything selected. We can right click and then go down to Keyframe Assistant and this thing called Sequence Layers. So this is going to let us, we're not going to overlap anything. We're just going to say, okay. And it just goes at the end of the last layer, we'll just bring the beginning of the next one over. And so it just gives us this little beep, boop, 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 boop. And now we just need to click and drag this out. And I actually already might anticipate a problem we have that we can fix pretty easily. Yep. All right, so we have a stagger, but it's actually not in the right order. So the reason this happened is because inside of Illustrator, the order in which you like write the things on and create them is the order in which your layers will get put in here when you do the sequence layers. So basically we have some things out of order. So I'm just going to undo a couple of times, and it takes a little bit of manual work, but I can see that, oh, I'm using another keyboard shortcut here. If you hit Command and the down arrow, it just toggles down, up and down through the layers in the After Effects. Now, I also want to say quickly that I'm throwing a lot of keyboard shortcuts out there at you, and there's a lot of stuff going on. But you don't have to don't worry about remembering every single one of these. I'm going to have like notes about keyboard shortcuts that you can like look at, follow along. But I do want to help you see the possibilities inside of After Effects because it's super cool. Oh, see Cecily. So we've got, I'm just doing this so I can look up on the screen and see like the E, the H, the T. So all of these, if I hold like the command up and down and hold shift, it's actually multi-selecting these. So I'm going to give these like a different color. I'll call this first one red. And this one, I might start actually naming some of these layers. I'm going to try to run through this pretty quickly. Crossbar. This is another crossbar, but this is for the next word. So I might call this one, make that one pink. And this is the ON part of that. Also pink. Moving down, I, T, A. All right, later, we'll see you in the next class. Cool. IM. This is the N. So these are kind of in order here, kind of a reverse order. A bar, A2, A1. And I'll show you a cool trick for kind of flipping the reverse order of the layers, which is super handy. Let's just go ahead and do that. So right here, I can see that basically most of these letters are kind of in reverse order that I want them. And so if I click on the layer that I want to be at the top of the stack first, and then I go all the way up to the top and click that one, and I hit Command X to cut them, and then click on the layer that I want them to be above and hit Command V, it's switched them. So now that like basically animation is written on in the right order. I need to go find this N. This one is N. Bring that up here. There's just different ways that you can kind of reorder things. Sometimes it takes a little bit of manual fixing, but again, I kind of want to show the rawness of what it takes to get your animations right, because I don't want you to be delusioned into thinking that all it takes is a few clicks. Sometimes there's definitely, this is also part of the N, a little bit of elbow grease that goes into these things. E, the work needs to be put in. This one looks like it's also, it's kind of similar, mostly reverse order. Let's grab these. And we've got L, E. I need to move these T's up here. Lettering. All right, that's getting there. Now they're in the wrong place. Let's drop these below those. Command Shift A to deselect. And actually, let's come through here and just toggle down. It's mostly in order. The crossbars, I think, need to be a little different. Where's the T in here? Hello, T, where are you? Oh, I called it I2. That is not right. That is T. So whoever said that they don't label things, you might be seeing why that could be a problem inside of After Effects. All right. So I think everything is in order now. Let's just call it in order. Yeah, okay. So let's go back and do the same thing we did before. Select all of those layers, bring the playhead to the beginning, hit the Option right bracket. That trims everything down. If our playhead is out here and we hit Option right bracket, it trims that, like it retrims that layer out to be wherever your playhead is. It moves the last part of the layer to wherever that playhead is. So we want it to be right there at the beginning, because we're going to lost my mind. Keyframe Assistant, that's the one. And then sequence layers and okay. And then clicking the edge of those layers and dragging them out like that. And now we should get a pretty decent animation happening. Of course, the dots need to be addressed. Let me undo those, address those really quick. Could be as simple as letting this dot come in. If I hit Option left bracket, that trims that layer, excuse me, that layer. Same way as option right bracket. And so that I'm looking up here at this dot right here. It just pops in right there, because wherever the layer is not showing its color there, it doesn't show up on the screen. It only comes in when you have that showing, the layer part. And the second layer, the second dot would come in right around here, not even doing any fancy animation bits, just having them pop in. Drop by for a minute. Cool. With a little bit of reorganizing, we've already animated an entire logo here. I guess it's the lettering animation and then workshop, but you get it. It's like really not that much work. And I think it looks pretty cool. I tend to push my things a little further because I've been animating for about 6 years and I like to see what I can do to stretch myself. But I want to show you what's possible within a decently short amount of time. If you practice this a few times, you'll be surprised at how fast you can crank out something like this that you're like, hey, not bad. If you get in the habit of either tracing fonts to have this just a single width stroke on it, then you could be making social media posts pretty quickly with your right-on animation skills that you've learned today in the hour and 17 minutes that we've been working on it. Not too bad. Does anybody have any questions so far? I want to show you how to export this so that you could get it into your email signature on your website. But I thought I'd make sure that I'm covering everything and not going too fast. Take a sip of my coffee in a moment.
This has been great.
Cool.
One question on your Rachel example.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an easy way to do more of a tapered into the stroke, or would you do that in Illustrator instead of After Effects?
Yeah, I would probably do that for, you mean if for the letter to go down to a tapered? Yeah. I would do that in Illustrator, and tomorrow I'm going to cover how to get that effect. Cool. Because you can't really do this. Basically, we need to add a step to it.
Yep.
And if you want, I can show you a super rudimentary version of what I'm going to cover tomorrow. But let's see. If I go in here to the pen tool, I'm basically just going to create a tapered shape here. If I turn the fill on and turn the stroke off. So let's just pretend that was the layer, the letter, maybe the beginning part of the R that we wanted to write on. Let me label this one R. I'll show you what happens if you try to do the trim paths first and why it doesn't really work. So if we go back to the beginning, keyframe for the end, move it forward, keyframe to make it 100%, even giving this an ease. You can kind of see how it's moving around that shape, but it's not doing a right on. It's just kind of doing this strange reveal.
Still following that stroke.
Yep. So it is doing what you told it to do, but it just doesn't work for the fill as well. Actually, if we turn the stroke on, you can kind of see how it's writing the stroke and then just connecting wherever that is, sort of connected to the fill. Mm-hmm. So what we need to do instead of that, let's go in here, delete the stroke, and delete trim paths altogether. Now I'm going to create a new shape layer. And on this shape layer, I'm going to turn the fill off, turn the stroke up quite a bit, change the color so I can make sure I can see it. Using the pen tool, where'd it go? There's the pen tool. And this is not the shape, so this is the shape we want to be drawn on, but this is the shape above it that we're going to draw this stroke on. Basically, we're going to draw a stroke that covers that. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting nitpicky here, but I like to make sure that this stroke also has the round cap on it. And we're going to add trim paths to this one. We'll see where, find trim paths here. So we've got the trim paths, and we want this part to start at the top and move ahead to about 1 second. Animate that on. Of course, this is just covering up that little bit. Doesn't do anything. So the magic here is on the R layer, this track matte changes to alpha matte. And so now that says anywhere that blue stroke was, that automatically like eyeballs off this layer. But wherever that blue stroke was, wherever it's covering it up, reveal the layer below.
My mind just blew.
What? Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's one of the coolest things. Now I think I love doing the trim paths on just strokes because like it's just done automatically. But this is one of those magic things. It's like it doesn't mimic real life very well because they're like I think of Harry Potter and like the magic blanket. I can't remember what it's called. Basically the cloak that they put on, the invisibility cloak. It covers them up and makes them invisible. And this is kind of the reverse of that. Wherever the cloak covers it up, it makes it visible. But there's also another thing in this setting, you can call it alpha inverted. And that actually does make this become the invisibility cloak. You can see like the invisibility cloak covering it. It disappears.
Super cool.
Yeah. And I'll go into more depth tomorrow.
Cool.
Yeah, we are running long here. Sylvia, thanks for popping in. Check you later. Okay, so now I want to show, unless there's other questions, anybody else is welcome to be brave and share your voice with the world or this small group of people. Otherwise, I'll just keep moving on and show you how to export this thing. Let's just, so basically, I don't know if you're familiar with animated GIFs. Animated GIFs is a great way to put your signature in your email or your website, but GIFs also tend to run like a pretty big size, like file size, and you want to keep your GIF file sizes small. It's kind of a rule of thumb so that your emails send well and they don't get clogged up and flagged for being too big of a file. And same thing with websites. You want web pages to load quickly. So to make your signature file smaller, right now we have this set to 1920 by 1080, which is like full HD video. We don't need it to export that big. So my favorite way to make this smaller is to duplicate, what are we in? This is called signature. Here's another handy tip. If you don't know, I see signature right here, but if I had a ton of stuff in here and I wanted to just quickly find the signature composition inside the project panel, you can right click somewhere in here, right click and then say reveal composition in project. And it will, well, let me click off of it so you can actually see it working. Reveal composition in project, and it pops it up right there. It has it selected and everything. So what I like to do here is duplicate this one and then double click to have it open here. And actually, funny enough, delete everything that's in here. Just delete it all. But then we're going to drag signature into signature 2. So we can have compositions within compositions. Sometimes we call that a pre-composition. Basically, this signature composition goes inside signature 2. And then inside signature 2, we're going to go up to composition settings, and we're going to make this smaller. So I'm thinking like 400 pixels wide is probably good enough for your signature little email thing. And so 400 by, I don't know, 250 should probably do it. You can actually see it happening over here. Of course, this is cutting things off, but we can move things around, and I'll explain that in a second. Let's say okay. So now we have this composition. This stuff is animating kind of behind the scenes. If we click on it and resize it holding shift, it's going to give us this animation. Get it smaller, fits inside of here pretty fine. And right here we can choose how far zoomed in we are. If we want to see what 100% looks like, that's a good size for an email. It might even need to be smaller. But it's going to give us a nice small size to work with. And all right, Joe, later. Yeah, I'm liking this so far. And I think we're ready to actually just go ahead and export this. It used to be that After Effects would not export animated GIFs. You'd have to export and then put it into Photoshop and then save out using like save or whatever, save for web rather. But now we can go to File, Export, and add it to the Adobe Media Encoder, which is just kind of another way to export your videos. After Effects has its own render queue, and then there's this thing called Adobe Media Encoder, which I don't have open right now. And as you'll see, it takes a second to open the first time. There's a kind of an inside joke with motion designers. It's like, no, I closed Media Encoder. What was I thinking? I need to use it again today. Like, to keep it open because it takes forever to open for some reason. All right, so then from here, there's a format, there's a preset, and there's output. And basically, we want to go into this drop down here and choose animated GIF. Animated GIF, and then inside of here, oh, I guess that's the only option, match source. Perfect. And let's give it a place. I'll pop it into my desktop, signature GIF. I might call it small. Hit save. And when you're ready, you've got it, going to a certain place that you know where it's going to be. Hit the play button. Another kind of weird one. I don't know why it's play button, but now it's going to basically go through and grab that After Effects composition and turn it into a GIF. All right. And now that we get this little check mark, it's done. Come in here and I'm going to look for signature GIF and just hit space. And now we've got this little GIF. This is great. I'm not sure if this is going to loop or not. Yes, it does loop. So it loops for however long your composition is. Now, if I zoom back out of my, oops, wrong one. If I hit the plus and minus key without the command, it just zooms into the timeline. And I can see here that my timeline is 10 seconds long. Yeah, and so that is to answer, I'm sorry, I can't see your full name, but Kismina. Basically, it is exporting this white background because I have a white background on it. And to be honest, I'm not sure if this is going to export with transparency or not. So let's give it a shot. Another one of those going working live, and we'll see what happens. So if I hit Command Control M, that sends it to the render queue. That's actually not what I want to do. Let's do the same thing we were doing earlier, sending it to the media encoder, which is up in composition. File, export, add to media encoder, which I just did the keyboard shortcut for. Should pop over here in a second. Yep. Let's go back out here again. Signature. I shouldn't be using my desktop. I use that to capture all my screenshots. Y'all see all my mess out here. Save, hit export. There is a way to export with transparency. I just can't remember if I can do it inside of Adobe Media Encoder by itself. That would be cool if it does work this way though. We'll just have to wait just a second. Ooh, yeah, it looks like it's exporting with transparency. And I'll show you what happens when you do that. So we do have it exporting with transparency. So this will show up transparent. Now I'm going to pull this animated GIF in here. And this is kind of cool. If you drop any kind of thing from your project panel onto the create new composition window, it will create a new composition and put that, asset into the composition and make it that size. All right, so we can see that this red is coming through nice. What I want to test is see what happens when there's like a white background behind it. That doesn't look white. Oh, nope. It's actually not transparent. Bummer. It exported it with a black background. So there's just like a little bit of a workaround. So yeah, sorry that didn't work out quite like I was hoping it would. But the way we're going to get this is by rendering with Adobe's or After Effects actual render queue. So we're in this composition, we're going to go to File, Export, and instead of Adobe Media Encoder, we're going to say Render Queue. And from here, we're going to click on Lossless, and then go up here to RGB, and it has this plus alpha, and that's how you're going to render this out with transparency. So it need more advanced steps. I was hoping it was easy, haha, but nope. Yeah, it's one extra step, and then you have to bring it into After Effects. But I will show you, or into Photoshop. Let me put this on the desktop as well. Signature, that's fine. 2.1 render. While that's rendering, I'm going to open up this GIF gun. Actually, I might have a GIF gun. GIF, nope. GIF gun After Effects plugin. All right, it's a $30 plugin, but it's another one of those, like if you're making GIFs a bunch, especially for social media, that's very common GIF export. Getting GIF gun, I have used it most days that I animate, and so I think it's highly worth it. And I'll show you how that works. If I open, these are all the plugins that I've either got for free or purchased. I would collect them basically. Let's go down and find GIF gun right here. And so what GIF gun does, this does actually make it very simple and pretty quick. You have minimal options in here, so it's not a lot to mess around with or mess up. 32 is typically fine for a one color thing. And basically we're going to say keep alpha, and we want it to loop. That's great. And basically just say make GIF, and it goes, okay, I'll make it for you. And this thing's showing 99% ready, compression, done. And then it's going to show up here in just a second. And now we have a transparent GIF. Now, transparent GIFs sometimes have this issue where you have a little bit of like aliasing. So typically if you have like a white, like a black signature, it will show up better for some reason. But like you see, if we make it really big, it's kind of chunky. So it could be that exporting as the MOV, yeah, GIF gun for the win, woo. That's awesome. But yeah, exporting a transparent MOV and putting that into Photoshop might be the best way. All right, see you later, Jeff. But yeah, it is the kind of the nature of GIFs. They're a finicky file type. They almost went away a long time ago, but because of their animation capabilities, they stuck around. And I'm a little surprised there isn't a better standard for animated non-video animation files. But yeah, it just is kind of is what it is. But once you kind of get it to be a good file size, not too big, not too small, it's really cool to have. Let's see. Actually, yeah, I think that's about all I was going to show for today. Let me unshare my screen unless anybody has any questions. Cool to see a bunch of you still sticking around. This is a long hour-and-a-half session. No joke whatsoever. But yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys make, and I'd love for you to post it if you do animate your signature or any other kind of lettering. Post it in the Facebook group or tag me. I'll post it in here in the chat. Paula, yeah, I'm gonna post a link to the replay and send it out in an email, and post it in the like a way to get to it in the Facebook group as well. What was I saying? I forgot already. Oh, yeah. So I'd love to see your animations. If you post it on Instagram or Twitter or Dribble or something, you can tag me. It's Austin Saylor. Actually, I might as well just put my full thing in here. Maybe you follow me already there, but I'd love to see it. Tag me in it. Or I'm going to be posting some stuff with the hashtag Lettering Animation Workshop. Buy iPad. Oh, that was sent to me probably. Anyways, let's see. Before I get too scatterbrained, I've talked for an hour and a half, but I want to make sure that you're all confident that you can do this. Does anybody have any questions or things that you think might trip you up, or if you're working on it yourself? Shoot me a message here. Or actually, you know what? I'm going to be checking the Facebook group as well. So if you have any kind of questions about, any of these steps, feel free to ask in that Facebook group or shoot me an email. I'm happy to help. After Effects can be one of those like super confusing things because there's literally so many things to do in there. But once you get over that like initial hurdle, it's super fun. It's just like the most fun thing ever. All right, Anthony says, I have a question actually, but not related to this. It's about the Stranger Things opener. Can you look at this and then just tell me how to get that sort of inner glow effect they used to get the look like the old TV, aka throw me a literal setting to look into? I'd ask on Facebook, but I'm not there. I'm going to look into that and either shoot you an email. Oh, okay, I've got the Instagram link in here. I guess I could show my screen. How about that? Share my screen so we can all see this. Oh, nice. Hey, that's pretty good. Yeah, so I'll look into some different effects that you could do to get that glow look. Obviously, they did some wild stuff with getting it like super like cinematic and whatnot, but I'll try to find a couple things that make that easy. And yeah, I actually need to write that down because I'll forget. Stranger Things glow. Awesome. Make that a list item. Make that a list item. Okay. Any other questions before we head out? Write them down if you have them. Pop them in the Facebook group. If not, tomorrow I'll be talking about the graph editor and showing you how to manipulate the graph editor to get really interesting smooth motions in there. I'm going to be talking about that thing I was showing with writing on letters that have variable widths, and that can get kind of tricky because I don't know, there's a whole lot of stuff that can kind of go wrong if you don't know what you're doing. So I'm excited to show you like the things that'll help you from getting tripped up. Awesome, Anthony. Thank you. You're a boss. See you tomorrow. But yeah, I can't wait to show you tomorrow, and I can't wait to see your homework. So go make something move, and I will catch you, as my friend says, catch you on the flippy flop. All right. Bye, everybody.